M Night Shyamalan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you, sir. After Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi went to do something much smaller, and he found that the restrictions of the smaller film made him much more creative in the film he was making for Drag Me to Hell. Did you find after your, big budget movies that The Visit did something similar for your filmmaking?
I grew up kind of worshiping independent filmmakers. So I grew up on the East Coast of the United States, and I went to NYU Film. So my gods were Woody Allen, the Coen brothers, Spike Lee at the time was making like the cutting edge movies. And so that group of filmmakers, and Scorsese, so they were all kind of the East Coast filmmakers, and I wanted to be that. I wanted to make smaller movies, and so kind of, I think always, even in my bigger movies, when I'm writing my own ideas, they're always small movies that are kind of done in a bigger way. And so I just said, are there ideas maybe that can be done in a smaller way? And The Visit was the first of these, hopefully, and the hope was that I would have more fun, I would be able to do different things and make a more unusual movie, more idiosyncratic movie, something different for you guys. And that's what I felt like happened. And it was just such a fun and satisfying experience. It made me feel very grateful to be a filmmaker.
You used the found footage format, and every couple of years, film critics will be like, it's dead, it's the worst, and people should put it out of its misery. And then we'll get a great one, and everyone is suddenly reinvigorated with it again. Why, first of all, did you decide to do it found footage, and what is your opinion on the found footage kind of subgenre?
Well, this is a great question. First of all, I'm distinguished between documentary and found footage, and The Visit's a documentary. And the reason I make such a distinction is because when it's a documentary, you have the latitude to make it beautiful. You have the latitude to put cinematic intent behind every single shot. It's been thought out by a filmmaker, as opposed to the camera's going on, let's record that monster, that kind of thing. There's no intent, it's haphazard. Those are very different aesthetics, and so The Visit, hopefully, is a beautiful movie because it had cinematic intent behind it. So that's one. Now, the format of found footage is a super powerful one because it is a way of shooting a movie that has a point of view in it. So the filmmakers, that's our job as filmmakers, regardless of how we make a movie, is to bring our point of views to the table. So if you do a found footage format, you automatically have a point of view. So it can be in lieu of a point of view, and so it gets abused a lot, right? Because you don't even understand why it's so powerful. So it's an accent, it's a flavor. It's like Tabasco sauce. It's used too much by people. Oh, I can make something that's mediocre and just put Tabasco sauce on it, and it's flavorful. Look at it there, and that's that way. It's a very powerful flavor in the dish.
For this movie, you worked with Jason Blum and Blumhouse, and he seems to have this fantastic way with horror films where he can make them for cheap. They bring back a fantastic profit, and more often than not, they're really interesting to the viewer because not every one of them will be exactly the same.
Yeah. How
did you find working with him? And he kind of has this influence on modern horror, I guess, where the found footage isn't used too much in all of his films. Yeah. What do you think is your opinion is on horror today?
Wow, big questions there. Big questions. So with regard to Jason, Jason was someone that came and visited me, He came to my farm in Pennsylvania and pitched me this idea of making smaller movies and saying, there's a lot of benefit to it. Have you ever considered doing it? Do you want to do one together? And this was years ago. And I was like, Jason, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this. It seems too scary for me to go and make a tiny movie. What if nobody wants it? What if, how can you convince the studio that this is worth going out to the world? So he went away. And then when I got this idea, I was watching Jason succeeding with all these movies, and I said, well, why don't I go do that? So I went and shot it very quietly, and the first person I showed it to was Jason. I said, Jason, I went and did it. Can you look at this movie? I showed him a rough cut. He loved the movie. And, he's so smart about honoring those things that maybe the system doesn't, and knowing that there's a big universal audience for it. And so he's the champion of kind of edgy, different kind of storytelling. So it was a fantastic relationship. He's a really sweet guy. and you know, I was lucky to have him on the piece. Now, the state of horror movies, you know, it's always a maligned genre. I actually don't think of myself as a horror filmmaker. That's not what I do. I'm a psychological. If you had to put a moniker on it, psychological thrillers is that's where it is. It isn't just about scaring you. It's about the psychology of the characters. Now, the state of horror, you know, it's always an abused genre because it's kind of an entry-level genre for filmmakers a lot of times, and they sometimes don't respect the characters and just go for the gratuitous kind of scares, and that is a bad thing. But occasionally the greats make something wonderful in the genre. Like some of my favorite filmmakers, like Robert Wise made The Haunting. Obviously Hitchcock made Psycho, and Spielberg made Jaws, and on and on and on. We can talk about, Ridley Scott made Alien. Some of my favorite movies of all time are when excellent filmmakers go to this genre.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
It's a pleasure.